Facebook Live recordings as well. And we will have the YouTube videos up next week for you to view any of the sessions that you have missed, including today's. We have a wonderful program for you this morning that will be conducted in two parts as we celebrate the Through the Arts Hispanic Heritage Month. And first, we are honored to have with us the Dali Museum and their Innovations Lab Director, Dr. Kimberly Macquarie, with us to bring you a virtual tour of a very unique exhibit that they have at the museum now. And second, we will have our middle and high school students and families who are participating in the Hispanic Outreach Center's programs to share their stories in narrative form, what it means for them to be Hispanic today in the United States and in Pinellas County. So to begin today's program, I'm pleased to introduce Dr. Kimberly Macquarie, Director of Community Programming and the co-director of the Innovation Labs at the Dali. Dr. Macquarie is an experienced educator, curriculum designer, and writer. And as the head of community programming, she strives to create innovative and engaging programming options to serve the educational mission of the museum. And some of you who have participated in our annual Embracing Our Changing Community Diversity Conference 2 years ago, can't believe it's been 2 years, may recognize her as she is a certified facilitator of the Lego Serious Play for Teams and led us in a Lego workshop around diversity, equity, and inclusion. So we're glad to have you back again with us this morning, Dr. Macquarie, and I will turn it over to you to share with us about the Dali Museum and the exhibit that you have on display at the museum that we are going to actually get a virtual tour of this morning.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jacqueline, for that wonderful introduction. I'm incredibly honored to be here this morning and taking part in what is the last day officially of this celebration of Hispanic Heritage Month. But as you mentioned, 2 years ago, I was very pleased to be able to take part in the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Conference. And so I hope, as I'm sure you do, that diversity, equity, and inclusion, whether it be in the Hispanic community or in our other communities, isn't relegated to just 1 month out of the year, that it's something that we constantly celebrate and that we constantly work for throughout the year. And that really brings me to this exhibit that we have downstairs. We were lucky enough to have a partnership with the Mexican consulate in Orlando, and they shared with us these amazing historical photographs of Diego Rivera and Frida Kahlo. Now, what's really amazing about these photographs is that we are familiar with both of these amazing artists as artists, and especially the way that both Diego and Frida created new iconographies for Mexican identity. Diego through his murals, showing from the founding of Mexico through the building and through the growing, especially celebrating the worker because of his own, political leanings. That was a very big part of, what made Diego such an amazing artist. And then Frida, because of her own heritage, one of my favorite quotes from Frida is, "I am a mixture." And she always understood herself within that matrix, having a mother who was Mexican, but she had both Spanish and indigenous heritage, and her father who was German and who had emigrated to Mexico at a young age. And so I think it's very fitting that we have these photographs that celebrate both of them as people and their lives together, things that are as normal as playing with pets or cooking together or just being together. And these photos then allow us to show the complexity of their identities. And I think that that makes a very nice fit with what we're going to do later with the families as they understand their own identities as being very complexly located within the United States, but also very connected with their homeland. And so I'm very pleased to participate, and I'd like to turn you over to my colleague, Peter Tush, who is a curator of education, and he is going to tell us a little bit more about this exhibit. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Peter Tush, the curator of education. Thank you, Kim, and welcome to our talk about Diego and Frida, a visual history that we're doing in conjunction with Hispanic Heritage Month. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the exhibition, and hopefully you'll have a chance to come in and explore it on your own. It's really important to understand that we know Frida and Kahlo very well. We know Diego and Rivera pretty well because they are such amazing artists, and they really have become known as some of the best artists of the 20th century, and in particular, they represent Mexico. They are the two artists that we think of when we think of Mexico. A lot of things that we don't think about are the fact that these black and white photos are in many ways responsible for the reason we know them. They were great with people, they were very articulate, they were charismatic, and they were very photogenic. So we're going to be looking at some of the examples in this show that made them stars and allowed them to express what they knew and valued about Mexico, so it became international. So behind me, we have some of the very first shots in this exhibition. There's a beautiful shot of the two of them kissing, but they were a rather unusual couple, which I think is also part of their celebrity status. She was a very tiny, diminutive woman. He was a very robust, 300-pound plus gentleman. There was a 20-year difference between them. And they were just so fascinating to the public because he was such a great painter. She seemed so exotic, and they really played this up in their photographs. So the photos we have, some are by friends, some are anonymous, but some are by some of the greatest photographers in the world. Edward Weston, Mario Alvarez Bravo, Nicholas Murray, and they wound up on the cover of Vanity Fair in Paris. They wound up on Time magazine. They wound up representing their country. So in this early section, you get the sense of the marriage and how they come together. You get to see their parents, and they just kind of have a sense that it was an unusual relationship, and it was really fueled by their extreme personalities. So let's go to the next wall, and we'll continue this. Okay, so we're going to continue, and I just want to tell you a little bit about the wall behind me. This is the 1930s. So by this point, they had married in 1929. They had gotten a commission to come to the United States for the first time, and suddenly they're meeting new individuals who are going to be a powerful part of their future. In particular, Diego is a mural painter, and he paints these amazing murals that are valued by everybody. Once people see them, they want them for their structure. And he had a very deep belief between moving between communism and the idea of the worker and the proletariat, but also the idea of industry, industrialization will make for a better future for everybody. And so he was always had this very curious kind of situation where he would work with industrialists to provide murals, and at the same time they would have difficulty with his politics. So there was constantly this dance going on. He was very flamboyant and he was very charismatic, and he always was able to sell himself, but it created some problems. Frida, his wife, had a very different approach. She found that she could captivate people with her beauty, and she also found that she could visually dress to basically represent her indigenous upbringing in Mexico. And so she had these beautiful dresses that would partially hide a debilitating disease that she had lived with, polio as a child, and then also she had a terrible car accident in 1925 that really rendered her a person who suffered from a lot of pain, but she found that by dressing in these extraordinary outfits that she could captivate. And so the two of them created a kind of ability to work with almost anybody and win them over. And so behind me, there's a lot of photographs from the 30s that deal with the initial work in San Francisco, doing some murals there, that led to Detroit, doing some murals there. There's a lot of pain at this time, as well as great successes, including the miscarriage that they had, which really broke Frida. And there's also an extraordinary moment in 1938 where Frida and Diego meet Trotsky, who winds up spending 2 years in Mexico. He lives in Frida's childhood home for a period of time. She winds up developing an affair with him. And in the midst of all of this kind of chaos, the leader of surrealism, Andre Breton, comes to Mexico. He visits with Trotsky, wanting to write a manifesto, and in the process, he discovers Frida Kahlo, who has always had her artwork in the background. She was a painter because because of her accident, she couldn't become part of the workforce or live a typical life, and so painting was a way that she could express herself and her pain. Andre Breton discovers it, he proclaims that she is a surrealist, he's completely amazed by it, and it kind of creates this interesting dynamic between Diego being the very personal public mural painter and Frida being this very personal artist of her own life and her own suffering. And so all of these extraordinary things are happening in the 1930s, and from this, we're going to jump to the next section of the 1940s. Okay, and as we continue, we move into the 1940s. A lot of difficulty is part of the reality of this couple of Diego and Frida.
Oops.
Hello, he proclaims that she is a surrealist, he's completely amazed by it, and it kind of creates this interesting dynamic between Diego being the very personal public mural painter and Frida being this very personal artist of her own life and her own suffering. And so all of these extraordinary things are happening in the 1930s, and from this, we're going to jump to the next section of the 1940s. Okay, and as we continue, we move into the 1940s. A lot of difficulty is part of the reality of this couple of Diego and Frida. They have a lot of infidelity, and there's a lot of affairs that develop with both of them. They both are understanding and accepting of it, but Frida basically broke down when she discovered that Diego had an affair with her sister. That was really the turning point. And so in the mid-1930s, they were separated. By the end of the 30s, they had found that they time to wait and come back together. 1939, she once again had enough of him, she divorced, and within a year, they remarried. So this period of time, the 1940s, they are now married for a second time. The relationship is fraught with great difficulty, but she's become more frail, and he's becoming way more dependent upon her. So it's a really unusual situation. This is where her artwork becomes the artwork that we're familiar with from Frida. The self-portraits, like with the hummingbird, or the self-portrait of birds with the broken column. All of these kind of portraits that capture her. Hello, I'm Peter Tush, the Curator of Education. Discovers Frida Kahlo, who has always had her artwork in the background. She was a painter because because of her accident, she couldn't become part of the social workforce or live a typical life, and so painting was a way that she could express herself and her pain. Andre Breton discovers it, he proclaims that she is a surrealist, he's completely amazed by it, and it kind of creates this interesting dynamic between Diego being the very personal public mural painter and Frida being this very personal artist of her own life and her own suffering. And so all of these extraordinary things are happening in the 1930s, and from this, we're going to jump to the next section of the 1940s. Okay, and as we continue, we move into the 1940s. A lot of difficulty is part of the reality of this couple of Diego and Frida. They have a lot of infidelity, and there's a lot of affairs that develop with both of them. They both are understanding and accepting of it, but Frida basically broke down when she discovered that Diego had an affair with her sister. That was really the turning point. And so in the mid-1930s, they were separated. By the end of the 30s, they had found that they time to wait and come back together. 1939, she once again had enough of him, she divorced, and within a year, they remarried. So this period of time, the 1940s, they are now married for a second time. The relationship is fraught with great difficulty, but she's become more frail, and he's becoming way more dependent upon her. So it's a really unusual situation. This is where her artwork becomes the artwork that we're familiar with from Frida. The self-portraits, like with the hummingbird, or the self-portrait of birds with a broken column. All of these kind of portraits that capture her as a person suffering from pain are really part of this period of time. There's also portraits like this one of her with Diego watching her as she creates a self-portrait as a Tijuana, you know, in a traditional outfit. But eventually she puts a portrait of Diego on top of her forehead, which is missing from the photo, which talks about how Diego is constantly on her mind. This is also the period of time where Diego suddenly becomes such an international force in Mexican politics. And he's part of the mural project in Mexico, creating sort of the history for the people, the visual history, going back to pre-Columbian and Aztec times. And it's also where he's part of the National Foundation of Schools, so one of the first important schools in Mexico. And his career is also blossoming, and he's getting more projects. And this follows a very, very international project that happened in 1934, where he painted the mural for Nelson Rockefeller, which became extremely controversial because he included the image of Lenin, the father of the Russian Revolution, which led to the mural being destroyed in Rockefeller Center. It was repainted in Mexico, but it created an international kind of sensation about this man who upheld his values despite the fact that it was going to be destroyed. So all of these things are in the background, and the other things that just mentioned on this wall is that they're living in Casa Azul, which is and where she will eventually pass away in 1954. And they also have the shared Bauhaus style studio, this super modern studio where he has a building, she has a building, sometimes it's their house, sometimes it's their studio, but it becomes, again, a kind of international way for people to understand them as representing the ideas of Mexico, bringing the Aztec past into the present. And there's even some photos in here of them with some of their pets, which included monkeys, it included Mexican dogs known as choltos. They just really became the embodiment of Mexico in the early 1940s. On this final wall, we see the last decade of their life together, the 1950s. Frida died in 1954, Diego died in 1957. She was 47 when she passed, he was 70. But it's extraordinary how much they accomplished in their short period of time together, their 2.5 decades. And by the 1950s, Frida's debilitating series of operations really rendered her broken. And so we see in this photograph up here, she's wearing a body cast, which she is actually painted with the hammer and sickle. She still very much has strong fidelity, as does Diego, to the Communist Party. But she's prone, and she remains mostly in bed for these 4 years that she's alive at this point. She's also starting to drink a lot to deal with her pain, and she has a number of pharmaceuticals, and this is all creating a very, very bad situation. Despite that, she is still able to create some extraordinary paintings, and she sets up an easel along her chest that she's able to use when she's in bed. And so she does some really beautiful paintings at this time, while Diego is still creating these just amazing murals all through Mexico that have become so celebrated at this point. There's a photograph in the show of the very last public appearance that they made together. They protested the U.S. intervention into Guatemala in 1954. They were part of a large turnout. It was a cold, wet, rainy day. Her doctor told her she should not go, and yet she did. She developed pneumonia, and 11 days later, she died. The last series of photos we have in the show are photos of her passing and then Diego's passing. There's an open casket up here of Frida with Diego looking on, and he is clearly a ghost of a figure. They say that he aged 20 years in the year that she passed. This is her funeral, and then this is the incredible wellspring turnout of Mexicans come out to pay homage to her. 3 years later, Diego passes, and it's the exact same thing. And there's a second photo in the show that looks almost exactly the same. It was done 3 years later, but Diego and Frida both had their funerals in the same building, the Palace of Fine Arts in Mexico City. Thousands turned out. They represented for everybody the best things culturally and institutionally about Mexico, and they also were one of the most fascinating international couples anywhere. And so we hope you have enjoyed this short talk. I hope you get a chance to see this exhibition and to really understand for Hispanic Heritage Month what this couple represented. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for watching and for sitting through with some of my technical difficulties. I apologize for that. So Dr. McQuarrie, do you have any, I'll turn it back over to you to conclude with the session.
Yeah, so obviously, as Peter said, and I think that you could see through these photos, I just want to reiterate again the unique nature of the show, because we're so accustomed to looking at the murals or looking at Frida's really amazing self-portraits that I think we sometimes forget that artists are people. And these photos really chronicle them as people, you know, showing who their parents were and showing where they lived and showing them with pets, showing them with their family, and really highlighting those things that made them who they were, such as Frida's terrible accident that left her in great pain, and then later on in life really left her incapacitated. And that was the source of the artwork that we know. And so kind of being able to see these pictures of them as people let us have a back door or a window into what made them who they were as artists. And so I think that's the real value. And I appreciate Peter being able to share some of that with us today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And I know that with the video sound, some of it's a little hard to hear with from the museum. So we also, like I said, we're recording this so you can see it, and we'll post the video. So if you want to watch it again on your own, you'll be able to do that if you're not able to hear it exactly well. And also you can go to the museum itself, right? You're open, Dr. McQuarrie, for if you want to go see the exhibit in person yourself.
Yes, that is correct. You can go online and order tickets, because we have timed entry to the museum, because we're trying to keep everybody safe in terms of COVID. We have timed entry, masks, and social distancing, but that has not stopped people from coming in and enjoying this amazing exhibit.
Thank you so much. And for the second part of today's webinar, I will turn it over to our senior coordinator, Andrea Vendetti at the Hispanic Outreach Center, who will share with us a little bit about this connection between this art exhibit of the Frida and Diego Visual History and our Hispanic community here in Pinellas County. So Andrea, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Good morning, everyone. As it was mentioned in the tour by the curator, Frida and Diego are two of the best known artists in the world, and they are the two that we think of when we think of Mexican artists. We feel it's important to share this exhibit today with you because there's a strong Mexican American community here in Pinellas County, especially in Clearwater. In Clearwater, there is a community that comes from a small rural in Hidalgo, Mexico. Many speak not only Spanish, but a dialect. This is a hardworking community whose main way of living is agriculture. However, this area is also poor. There is lack of resources, and on top of that, the land is arid, so the crops don't grow easily, leaving many families without money and food. So many of them came to the United States about 20 years ago to live in Clearwater, Pinellas County, because of the industries here, the landscaping industry, hotels, tourism, restaurants, and this could be a good opportunity to earn a living and provide for their families. There are many lessons we can learn from Frida and Diego's life, love, and work, some of which we saw in the visual history exhibit this morning that are also true and reflected in the Hispanic and Mexican families living here in Pinellas County. There are lessons that we can learn and walk away with from today's webinar. The first lesson we have from Frida and Diego that we see in our community is that life is hard. It can be painful, but it's worth living. We see a resiliency, a strength of character in our families, much like we see in Frida. They do hard work and they do hard things. They overcome obstacles and they persevere. The second lesson is something that Frida had, and she never apologized for. She was proud of who she was and where she came from. This is also true of Hispanic families living in the United States today. We never forget where we come from and what our culture is, our language, food, and traditions are. We are proud, just like Frida, how Hispanic community embraces their culture, what makes us unique and special, even if others don't understand it. The third lesson is to live fearlessly, to express yourself, to be colorful, creative, and loud. Frida and Diego use their art to express their feelings, their pain, their opinions on social injustices and inequalities, politics, and love. We are seeing this in our Hispanics and Latinx youth more and more today. They are using their voices through social media, art, and more to express their unique selves. We're going to dive deeper into this and provide an opportunity for you to hear from our Hispanics middle and high school students here in Pinellas County, who are a part of our Hispanic Youth Leadership Program. They exemplify many of the characteristics that Frida and Diego are known for: strength, resiliency, and pride. And you will hear this in the video this morning. Now, let's listen to the students.
All right, because we are in the month of Hispanic Heritage, I have some questions to ask you.
All right.
First question, why are you proud to be Hispanic?
I am proud to be Hispanic because I got to learn Spanish at a young age, and it helps me to communicate with people outside this country that also speak Spanish.
Very good. Now the second one. What is your favorite thing about your Hispanic heritage?
My favorite thing about my Hispanic heritage is the access I have to other cultures, foods, and flavors that don't really exist here in America.
Very good. You are almost Hispanic.
And for me, I like being Hispanic and part of like the Mexican culture because not only can I speak two languages, but not as fluently as my mother, but also because I get to experience like what some of that culture can be, such as the food, clothes, language, communication with others.
When I was in elementary school, I used to go to an after-school program, and everyone there was Hispanic. The majority of us were Hispanic, including the staff, and everybody was really nice. And it just was a really comfortable place, very comfortable place to be in. And in that place, there was this dance group whose name I cannot remember, but there was a dance group there, and they would practice every day, and I would watch them practice in the room. And it was really pretty. Like, I've never seen like this kind of dance before, like baile folklorico. I've never seen it. I've never been exposed to it. I've never seen people like wear these extravagant dresses, and their hair is covered in ribbons, and then the boys with like their suits and their sombreros. And I just liked how it just all was really nice and pretty. And they would always let me just sit there and watch them perform and practice. And then one day there was this kindergarten boy, I was in 3rd grade, I was sitting on the side, and this boy didn't have his dance partner, and I watched him get up and go to the teacher and tell her that he didn't have a partner to practice with that day. So she looked around and she saw me, and she told me that I had to be his partner, even though I had no prior experience to doing baile folklorico or dancing at all. And I was just kind of forced into it, but it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed being part of it. It was very including, and it was really nice and fun thing to do after school, even though I would leave tired because of the hours of dancing and like practicing we did every day. But I'm very thankful for being exposed to that and being included into something, because it's just a very good thing to do. It was a nice experience that I was able to go through, and it helped me express myself and take part in my heritage and learn so many new things that I didn't know before. And now I can dance when I go to bailes, and it's just something I can say I'm proud of. That's part of my heritage that I can be proud of.
Being Hispanic isn't about the labels. I'm Mexican American. Many will label me as a brown person or an immigrant or say, oh, she's only speaks Spanish. Being Hispanic is not about that. It's about oneself, where they come from, their traditions, their values in life. So yes, I'm brown. Yes, I speak Spanish. But I'm more than that. But you know what? I've never seen any other person work as hard as any Hispanic. My parents came here for a better life, for a better future. They didn't have what I have. They lived in a home and worked since they were kids, so they could support their family back then. And they've given me a chance to break their cycle, to do better, to get somewhere. You have to work for what you want to achieve, which is the thing that I want to be able to carry out for my future kids, along with the crazy traditions that have been carried out. When I was in elementary school, I had friends who didn't celebrate the same things I celebrated, or even talk to any of their family members, which was part of my heritage. To be with family and celebrate with all the amazing food, music, and dances. Like during a birthday party, it was tradition to get your face pushed into a cake by your cousins, along with a really long birthday song that many think is really complicated. Family is the most important thing in any Hispanic culture. They are the ones who will stick by your side, the ones who will show you how to dance, show you how to cook. They're the ones who will show you how to get through the rough times in life.
Growing up Hispanic, I've considered myself a Mexican American because my mother and father come from Mexico and have roots from there, allowing me the opportunity to grow Hispanic roots in the land they have brought me to. I am proud of being Hispanic because I've gotten to learn about the various cultures and traditions that come from being Mexican American. I have learned to have a fond and tight relationship with my family since I was very young. But being Hispanic, I am proud to say that I've gotten to learn a new language without even asking for it. But overall, being Hispanic, I've gotten to learn to earn things we need to work hard for it, meaning my parents have always taught me to be a hard worker. Just like them, I've watched them wake up early in the mornings and work hard as well. And they taught me that if I ever want something in the future, I have to work hard for it. As well as being Hispanic, I've gone to overcome many challenges that I've faced and that I've seen my parents face as well. It has allowed me to see that small little tasks and obstacles that come my way is nothing compared to what they have gone through. This heritage of being Hispanic or Mexican American has allowed me to learn the beautiful traditions that come with it as well, like Cinco de Mayo or the Hispanic Heritage Month, where we honor and learn more about the roots where I come from. I've gotten to learn the different types of food alongside with my family, which are very delicious by the way, but the major factor to learning about my roots and Hispanic heritage alongside my family has been the Pinellas community. Although I'm not in Mexico, they have incorporated events and community services to Hispanics. There are places where we are welcome and we don't feel excluded from the rest, which makes me proud to be an Hispanic because they recognize the hard work that comes from Hispanic communities. And this month, we honor the roots of where we come from. It allows my generation to learn more about where we come from and how interesting and beautiful the Hispanic heritage is.
My name is Brian Hernandez. I was born here in Florida. My family has a Hispanic background from Mexico, Hidalgo. I am proud to be Hispanic because we work hard into getting the lifestyle that we want. I have a loving family and they help me in any way they can to make me the person I want to be. They help me get options I wouldn't have if I wasn't Hispanic. What I love about my heritage is that I get to experience and learn about my Hispanic culture, the different kinds of food they have, such as tamales and barbacoa, and learn the many different kinds of dances. These experiences will help me become a better person and a better leader. To be living here in Pinellas County as a Hispanic is great because I get to meet good people who work hard and support each other in different difficult times. I get to have many opportunities to be able to show what I can do here. To be born a Hispanic is a privilege to me, and I am proud of the person I have become. Thank you.
One of our amazing middle school students, Alexa Binuelo, sent us some Q&As of what it means for her to be Hispanic, and I am reading it for her today. Why are you proud to be Hispanic? I am proud to be Hispanic because we are hard workers. We have loving and caring hearts. We are willing to help out others with whatever we have to offer and put others before ourselves. What do you love about your heritage? I love music, food, style, and work ethics. What does it mean to you living in Pinellas County as a Hispanic? I feel a part of a community because there are a lot of Hispanics living in Pinellas County. Thank you, Alexa, and all of the students.
Thank you. And I would ask that if anyone here is joining us, if you have a reason why you are proud to be Hispanic, why you are proud to be here in Pinellas County, feel free to drop that in the chat and see what these are our students' perspectives, but we'd love to hear yours as well. And thank you so much to our students for sharing. I'm so grateful for this space today, for us to be able to offer a platform for our students to use their voice to share their story and their perspective. We can learn from Frida and Diego, who reflect the past from before, and we can also learn from our youth because they are our future and their narratives reflect our future to come. And that future, to me, seems to be full of wisdom, empathy, strength, and pride. Today is a great example of why we need to create more spaces like this, spaces where people can be proud of who they are, where they come from, use their own words in whatever form, in whatever language, to express themselves and to be heard and to be understood. Especially today, we must continue to provide platforms such as this for our future leaders. And as Dr. Macquarie said, for us to continue to celebrate diversity, equity, and inclusion year-round, not just 1 month out of the year. There's so much that we can learn from each other, and it is my sincere hope that today, through Frida and Diego's pictures, their art, their romance, and their life, and from our students' words, that you will take these lessons that life is hard, but we can do hard things, and life is very much worth living. We should be proud of who we are and where we come from, and we should live fearlessly, colorfully, and boldly. And we hope that you take these lessons and use your voice, your talents, your opportunities, and what is available to you to make space for and celebrate our heritage, our cultures, and our diversity. We will have this exhibit, the virtual exhibit, and a separate set of narratives this evening at 6 o'clock, also available in Spanish. So the whole tour and the whole webinar will be held in Spanish, but if you want to join us, feel free. We would love to have you join us at 6 p.m. this evening. And we'll be posting the recording and the videos on our YouTube and our Facebook page, so you're able to go back in and watch them later on or share this with someone who was not able to make it this morning. And as always, you're welcome to also go to the Dali Museum itself and see the exhibit in person. Finally, we hope that you will join us tomorrow. Today technically is the last day of Hispanic Heritage Month, but we're going to extend it 1 day more and have our finale virtual celebration and open house tomorrow at 10 a.m. here on Zoom. And we hope that you'll be able to join us. We're going to be giving away baskets full of food and wine and drinks and goodies from all over our local Hispanic businesses and in the county, as well as recognizing and giving out awards to our many amazing partners who have worked with us and with the Hispanic community throughout this year, which feels a lot longer, even just from March, from COVID as well. So there are so many people to recognize. So I hope that you'll be able to join us tomorrow, as well as hear the Hispanic Heritage Month proclamation from the Vice Mayor of Clearwater. So thank you all again. I appreciate you joining us on our virtual tour, and have a beautiful and wonderful day.